I remember this laminated. It's
Somebody
like
asked
back
me
in
one
the
time,
day.
they said, what makes you think you're Jewish? I said, well, I got a picture. Let me show it to you one day.
Let's look at myself here a second. Pull this out.
He said, oh, you look like Bob Dylan.
Carrying the bag now. Never saw you have it with you.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Oh, my goodness.
Mhm.
That's when we got
Okay.
Okay.
There he is. Now we can start.
Yeah, thank you.
This is for you for Torch or whatever. I have some people gave me some books that might go with the Torch.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Skill and mitzvah. All
They
right.
just piled them onto me. So.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Welcome, Gates of Reincarnation. We don't have page numbers,
Okay.
so I cannot define it, but I think it is after, we're starting chapter 7, which is after page 98. You do have number 98, so chapter 7 is 99. Does anybody know where we left off? What part we left off last time? Was it on the second page, type section 2, first type? Or did I make it over to
No, you're over
second?
here
Section 2.
because my bookmark is.
Excellent, perfect, good, thank you. Okay,
Section 3.
section 3. Section 3, if you can find it in your books. Okay, so we're talking about,
The second level? Is that what it is?
you got it.
Okay.
So we're talking about 3 types of souls, right? An interesting thing that we spoke last week about what's called the additional or the tosefet of the soul. That God made the system in such a way that there's additional layers of ourselves, those additional levels of soul. They don't come as the essence of the soul itself. They come as an addition. Very much like we experience the neshama yesera, the extra souls that we get on Shabbat, right? The extra souls we get on Shabbat come on Shabbat at different times, and we discussed that last week. They come like the female part of those extra souls come on the night, Friday night, in Nefesh, Ruach, and in Neshama, on different parts of the davening, of the prayers. And then the female part of those extra parts of the soul come the next day. The male part, come the next day at different parts of the tefillah. And then, of course, on Shabbat, they leave, but they leave in a different way. It takes them 3 days to leave, which is basically why on Tuesdays you can make Havdalah up until Tuesday. Because on Sunday, the Nefesh part leaves, or the Neshama part leaves, and on Monday, the Ruach part, and then on Tuesday, the Nefesh part leaves. Okay? So we get extra souls, it's an addition. And the person has to train himself, and it's all about the training to be sensitive, to be aware of those souls, and what they do, and how they speak, and how you connect. It's all about the sensitivity. A lot of Judaism, and unfortunately in this day and age where everybody's desensitized, we have to always constantly work on sensitizing ourselves to feel the thoughts, okay? To be aware of how our feelings and what's going on Shabbat and the days after. So then we say that the additional parts of the soul are not part of the essence, and it's for a reason, and the reason is because when a person would sin, those higher parts of himself can detach, just like they were attached. They can detach, so they don't get damaged with a sin that the person does. So when Adam Rishon, being the first example, when he sinned, so the part of his souls, that additional aspects of those souls departed. They split. And they went back up so that they would not get damaged in the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And because they detached, so they do come out through all of creation, and they are called the new souls. And those are the new souls that we described in the Zohar and many places that we've learned already, that the basic format of how they gain all of their levels, they can gain it in one lifetime. At 13 they get Nefesh, right? When they're born they get Nefesh. When 13 they get Ruach, level 2, and at 20 they get level 3. Okay? So they can get them all at one lifetime. That's a new soul. And they can get them easily, as we're going to see. And now we also talked a little bit about level 3 souls last week. Just tipped a little bit. Because when Adam Arishon sinned, what happened? And we spoke a little bit last week also about how there were 7 worlds that God made and destroyed before this world. And so part of that whole cataclysmic episode that he did by making a world, destroying it, making a world, destroying it, was for the setup of what was going to be later on the klipot, or we call the husks or the shells, okay? What we'll call the dark forces or the influence for evil. God had to make something else, so to speak, an illusion of something else other than God, and that is how it formed, basically. So basically, before the creation, there were these worlds that God made and destroyed, and the destruction resulted in a breakage of klipot, a breakage of potsherds, which resulted in a potential for a physical world. In any case, whatever that was, and it's a very conceptual kind of idea, each one of the days of creation, God was rebuilding it, putting them together. Day 1, day 2, that's why you have 7. All the idea of 7, right? And so day 1 was getting fixed, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6 was getting fixed, and now he had man, which was the real, what do you call it, the volatile ingredient in this stew, right? What do you call it, the linchpin? I have no idea what the linchpin is.
I don't know either. I've heard it.
Okay.
What is it?
Well, we'll just keep
The
it.
pinnacle.
No, because you understand,
It's like the thing that
it's
holds it together.
yeah, but it's more than that, because you understand you got free will here. You have the atom that has free will, and you don't know where it's going to go. It's complete free will. Okay? So you just don't know where this thing's going to go. It's a very variable. It's just the ingredient that you don't know where this whole stew is going to end up. It's going to end up like rotted, or it's going to end up good, right? So you throw the pinch of saffron in, right? And too much saffron is going to spoil your dish, right? So the sensitive ingredient, which is Adam, and he had one commandment: don't eat from the tree. And so within Adam's very soul were sparks of all those days before it within him. Elements of all of those sparks were within Adam. And of course, when Adam sinned, so everything that was getting fixed from day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6 fell apart, and it was shattered again. And Adam's body parts, so to speak, were shattered all over the world. But there was, so that's why, and those souls, basically, the elements of those sparks that were shattered and dispersed among the dark world, the physical material world, were basically where the third level of souls we call old souls. Okay? So now we're going to discuss the second level of what we call semi-new souls. Okay? So in this section, the Rav will explain in greater detail what the second level of soul is. And he will describe an advantage of the first level of the second level. First level, we said, was new souls. They never were tainted from the sin in the first place. The second level consists of the sparks of the soul that remained with Adam, Harishon, after the sin. Right? In other words, Adam was still alive after the sin. He had an element of his own soul that was still basically there. It was existing within him. Because we say when Adam sinned, right? Before Adam sins, he was, how tall was he? Anybody remember?
500 cubits.
There, 500 cubit, whatever a cubit is.
Yeah, right.
1.5 feet.
2 feet.
Right?
Whatever.
So you're looking at like 500 cubits is like 750 feet. Right? So you're like 750 feet tall would be literal, but we don't want to get too literal, because unless, when the revival of the dead comes and he comes out of the cave of the Machpelah 750 feet tall, then okay, it was literal. Okay? In any case, after he sinned, though, he was shrunk to 100, cubits.
Cubits?
Which is 150 feet tall. He was only 150.
Still a little tall.
Still very eligible for the basketball team. Okay? So then, but basically the idea was his stature was shrunk. It was diminished. He lost a lot of elements of light that was within him. Okay? That's how we can look at it conceptually. Okay? when he was full of unbelievable light that could see from one end of the world to the other and all the dimensions and all the generations that would come out from him, all of a sudden, lights out. Okay? And so, there was still yet remaining with him the chunk of 150 feet. We'll talk about the 100 cubits, still remained with him. Okay? And those he bequeathed to Cain and Abel. Okay, I'm going to say, they say Cain and Hevel, because that's how we express it in Hebrew. Cain and Hevel. When they were born. So they are called new to some extent, but not completely new. When they are rectified, they will be more elevated than all the other souls that fell from Adam Arishon. It means level 3 souls. Since they had the ability to remain in Adam and they did not fall into the klipot, which is all the old souls fell into the klipot. In particular, they have the following advantage. When his sons, Cain and Abel, inherited them, it was not considered an actual Gilgul, which means a reincarnation, as if they came from a first body that died. It was during the actual lifetime of Adam Arishon that he bequeathed them to his sons when they were born. Therefore, all the sparks that are included in Cain and Abel are considered as if they were still part of Adam Harishon, the first man himself, as if they did not fall from him. Okay? So when these sparks came as part of Adam, they did not come to rectify themselves. Even though they were part of him, they did not belong to him. Thus, they are considered as if they never came. Some kind of quasi-state.
Very confusing.
Yes, it is. But anyways, just like a person would, let's say, have a child, right? So these days we cannot compare it. But the idea really here is, the way I can understand it is, they're still part of Adam. It's not considered a reincarnation. In other words, those souls of Cain and Abel, even though they were born anew, they were born, right? They were born. Where did those souls come from? So as if it's not coming from the reservoir of souls that's in heaven, the deposit, or from the klipot, the goof is the reservoir of souls. They did not get, okay, we're going to put into this body soul number 42-B12, right? And this one is going to be 42-B13, right? It's kind of like his soul was in them. So it's kind of like an extension of Adam while they were alive, okay? But normally that doesn't work that way. Normally what works is when a person is going to have a baby, okay? There's going to be a new person born into the world. So they got to scan through the charts, right? It's in unbelievable ways. God does his walk with the servant into the big tower where the portraits are on the wall, and he says, "This is going to be you, right there, that guy, that time." That guy, why do I have to get the bald guy all the time, right? Why do I always get the bald guy, right? Right? So, no, that's going to be you. And then the soul agrees to come into the body. But where did that soul come from? The reservoir of souls that was basically embedded in the klipot.
But not for Cain and Abel.
Not Cain and Abel. They didn't have to go through that process.
That's the same as the Otzar treasury.
The Otzar treasury, yes. Yes. Okay? It's the goof, as it's known in the Talmud in Nida. Okay? Yud Gimel Lamed Beit. Okay? When the goof is empty, that's when Mashiach comes.
This is why you're supposed
When the body is empty, when the goof, this body, this reservoir is empty, that's when the
The
Messiah
reservoir of
comes.
souls in heaven.
Yes.
So that's why you're supposed to have babies. Keep having babies.
Yes. That's right. That's
One of the commandments.
and it's one of the commandments to be fruitful and multiply. But of course, if a person, they fulfill it if they have a boy and a girl. If a boy and a girl, you fulfill the mitzvah. So if there are certain circumstances where it's very difficult to have children, so it's not necessarily, a person has to go to a rabbi, a prominent, respected rabbi, and there are ways where the person can
And the
have
last
birth
child,
control.
The last child coming out of the goof is born with no soul. Is that
No, it's the
brain
soul. The
of
soul,
Messiah?
the reservoir of souls has souls in it. It does not have M&Ms in it. Okay? It's a soul that goes into a body, and when that last soul comes, then Mashiach comes. Okay?
That's right.
So that's what the deal is, empty out the reservoir. That's the goal.
That's why
Okay?
we have so many kids.
But does that have anything to do with? So I heard the Cain and
Hevel were more like Eve and Seth was more like Adam. Does
Okay,
it have
now,
anything to do with
if you want to look at
dimension?
Cain, if you want to go to Cain, the mystery of Cain says he came from the Nachash, that the Nachash lived with Eve and Cain was born. Did you hear that before? Right.
He's looking at me like,
Nachash is the serpent. In other words, the serpent had a conversation with Eve, and the language is that he did not live with Eve. He did not actually literally have relations with Eve, but that conversation was a form of relations. It was a form of seduction. He injected into her what's called the zuhama. The zuhama. Right? What is the zuhama? So we translate that as schmutz. You know what schmutz is?
I think so.
Yeah.
Dirt.
Phil.
Dirt, filth. Okay?
What's
The schmutz, so he injected, so we say Cain was the schmutz, came from the zuhama of the Nachash. So we say Cain was a prodigy of the serpent and Eve, and Hevel was not. Okay? But that was like, it's not a literal that the serpent lived with Eve. Okay? I read in Sforim, it's not literal. Okay? So in any case, though, thank you for that little introduction to who Cain is, because we see what Cain does. Everybody knows what Cain did, right? Everyone knows what Hevel did, too,
But like,
right?
didn't it have something to do with who named them too? Like it was, I don't know. I didn't really read that in depth about it. I just kind of,
Eve named both of them, I believe.
but Seth, she didn't.
No. Sheit comes from, as we're going to see, Sheit comes from, we come from Sheit. In other words, we come from the broken vessels. We come from the old souls. I'm going to use it, but it could be that you were from Cain. It could be. I'm going to share with you something very interesting today. Okay?
As long as you're not from some little shady.
Well, something. I don't like to hold back from it. So we're just gonna.
Way off topic.
No, we're not off topic.
There we go.
Don't worry. I'm gonna take care of it. Is it on topic, Doctor?
Don't
Don't talk about flags. Flags. We're not talking about flags.
You said Messiah is going to come. When,
Messiah will come.
but that's the question I had in there.
If you want to talk about Messiah, it's another topic. It was just a little tidbit shoot on the side. When all the souls are emptied from the reservoir, Messiah comes. But we're going to go into Cain. I'm going to talk about Cain. Okay? Cain, since we talked about that, and I'm going to throw a mystery in you because you can never disclude yourself. Don't exclude yourself to say that I'm not Cain. I didn't come from Cain. Cain is not my root. Okay? There's a halacha. There's a law, a Jewish law. Okay? That it brings about that that we say, if you had bread and you're going to now say the grace after meals, right? There's a custom to remove knives from the table. Actually, the Ben Ish Chai says also there are also some people who want to be really exact. They remove any iron vessel on the table, right? Even a fork, right? A scissors, right? Paper scissors, right? Anything like of an iron item off the table, okay? And he brings down from the later rabbis, that brings down that there's not to be so makpid on everything that we worry about on Shabbat. On Shabbat, do you need to remove the knife from the table? Okay? Some people just get away with taking the knife and they put it underneath a plate, so you're not seeing. Now, the reason why the sages say no knives on the table is they bring another reason. It doesn't make sense to you. It's not going to make sense. I'm going to tell you why. It's not going to make sense to you. But the rabbis, they do that. They reveal a tefach, means a handbreadth, and they're covering too. In other words, it's a smoke screen, but you got to go with it. Okay? The reason why is because after the destruction of the temple, a person was doing the Birkat HaMazon, and he got to the prayer of build Jerusalem speedily in our days, and he felt so distraught that Jerusalem was destroyed, took the knife and killed himself. So therefore, the rabbis say, no knives on the table. Okay? It's kind of like absurd. I have to say, logically, it sounds why I'm so distant from what that feeling is of being so distraught over Jerusalem because I was born in Siberia or California, which is almost kind of the same. Okay? Distant from Torah knowledge and distant from connection to Judaism in Jerusalem, for sure. Okay? Right? So, in any case, I'm so disconnected. So, what's a Jerusalem? Okay? So, that's basically, was my knowledge. Okay? But people are not makpid on Shabbat. Okay, but in any case, it's a custom. They do this, and everybody does this, and you'll see it. They remove the knives from the table, and if they can, and they're already started benching, and they see the knife, and they'll shove it under. I don't know if it applies to plastic knives, okay? Barzel, he does say, okay?
Brazil iron.
Barzel is iron, thank you. Okay? He says there's those who are not so particular on this, on what we mentioned in Shabbos and Yom Tov, because obviously in Shabbos and Yom Tov there's a sense of joy. You're not going to freak out that Jerusalem's destroyed. You got your neshama yisera, you got an aspect of your extra soul there that's going to carry you through with joy and simcha. So you're not going to do something like that. But listen to what he says now, okay? Ubishar Ruach HaKodesh, he brings down from the Rav Chaim Vital, who brings in the name of his rabbi, the Arizal, the famed 16th century Kabbalist. He says, I found this, it took me like a while to find this, okay? And I made it in yellow so I can find it easier next time. Mishu Mishorish Kain, somebody who's from the root of Cain, Sarich Lizaher, he has to be careful. Lahasir Hasakin Lagamre, he has to, even on Shabbat, he should really remove the knife from the table. Okay? During the grace after meals. It's not enough to cover it. So if someone is from the root of Cain, he should be careful to remove the knife. Okay? And I looked at him, I'm going to my father-in-law, how do you would you know who's from the root of Cain? How would you know? I said that to my father-in-law.
Eat with chopsticks.
Well, if we're all from the root of Adam, we all have to be from Cain.
No, because we're getting different souls. Because don't forget, there's 3 sections of Adam's soul.
Okay.
All right, there's the old, there's the new, and then there's the semi-new. Right. So my father-in-law responded. He says, "I haven't met anybody who wasn't from the root of Cain."
Great
Well, there you
quote.
are.
Can I use
There you
it?
go.
There you are.
Okay. Just to throw that little practical advice. Because, obviously, I think it's kind of obvious. Why does somebody who's from the root of Cain, even on Shabbat, a knife on the table, would affect? You just don't know where that part of the soul, where it's coming from. And you'll take that knife and do something with it. Okay? God forbid. Okay?
The metal.
The metal, just me and metal when they get together, man. Right? Even on Shabbat and me, Birkat Hamazo, me and metal get together, or Jerusalem, I could just go crazy. Okay? Let's not, the idea really is knives and Cain. Why Cain and knives? Okay, of course, he killed Hevel, but he didn't kill him with a knife. There were no instruments in those days. Where am I going to get a knife from? Maybe a tongs. He could get a pair of tongs. I don't think it's recorded that he killed him with a pair of tongs, okay? Tongs were created on Friday afternoon, just before sundown, right? Because you need tongs to make tongs. So God had to make the first set of tongs, because you can't make tongs without tongs. Sound funny? That's right, it is, okay? But it brings that down. Don't think Hashem doesn't have a sense of humor, okay? So in any case, he really killed, him by smashing him to pieces, because he didn't know what part does the soul leave the body. He killed Abel, not with an instrument. But later on, you see his descendants, the descendants of Cain. By the way, the most creative. If you go through the generations and his descendants, right in the first chapter of Genesis, they created the instruments of music, instruments of war, all kinds of tools. They were the creative, build cities. All the creativity comes from the dark side. Okay, you got to know that. You need it. It's the fuel. It fuels us. Okay, it's that sparks from the dark side that give us the fuel and the creativity. Okay, so in any case, knives and Cain don't get together. So just
Was Hevel killed before he had descendants?
Yes.
So that we're all derived from Cain then?
No, Shet. Don't forget,
Cham, Shem, V'Yafet.
Adam, after 130 years of separating from Eve, his wife, which we've gone through that, and what happened.
Poor guy.
He decided, was his decision, right? He decided, he was with the ladies in the hot tub. for 130 years, okay?
That's tough,
Cerveza, a lot of tequila.
Shaking
In any case, the idea was, of course, now you let me loose
left you
here.
with the ladies in the hot tub.
Stop. We're not getting into there. I'm not getting into the Zohar. Melissa's freaking out going, I don't know where you're going, Rabbi. Yeah, I guess you weren't in some of these earlier classes where I discussed this. I'm so sorry. I give a lot of classes, and I don't want to repeat myself too many times. Like, we've heard this all before. Let's do the eye roll. Okay, so when Adam separated from Eve, his wife, for 130 years because Cain killed Abel, why should I bring more kids?
Right.
Or as some people I saw somewhere, it was just a way of atoning for the whole Garden of Eden business. But still, the Zohar brings down that there were two women of the night, two demons, right? Lil, his ex, and his first ex, because he did have a first wife who became his ex. And then there was Nama, okay? And they came and...
What was the second one?
Nama,
Never heard that name.
okay? I believe it was that. I double check, okay? Because it was also the same wife of Noah, who was a descendant of Cain. So in the ark, there was descendants of Cain who she was. She was... Noah's wife came from Cain. Okay? Noah came from Shet, and Cain and his wife, I believe her name was Nama, came from Cain. Okay? But in any case, I forgot where I got on that. So in any case, he separated from Eve, his wife, for 130 years, and they say it was just in the form of dreams and imaginations, and basically he had seminal emissions as a result of his thinking, and those seminal emissions have strong creational forces that the other side takes, and they create hybrid entities from them. Okay? And those hybrid entities, we're going to X-Files. I'm sorry to go X-Files here. I'm not really,
I like X-Files.
So, it's like, so those hybrids, we're a whole race of hybrids. 130 years of kids. Every night is a lot of hybrids. They reincarnated they became incarnated into bodily forces in the generation of the flood. And of course, they went wild. Right? And Hashem had to flush them out. The same group came back into the generation of the dispersal. They went wild in a different way, and therefore he wiped them out, and then they came back in Sodom, and Hashem wiped them out, and then they came into the generation of Egypt in Joseph's time. Joseph knew who they were from. He knew all these souls where they were from, and that's why he had them all do bris milah in order to rectify that part of themselves, circumcision. And what they freaked out, but they had to do it. You want to eat? You circumcise. No food? Circumcise? Yes, food. No circumcise? No food. Right? So they all go circumcise. So anyway, because he rectified them. He fixes the souls. Every single time they come back and forth, they get rectified. And then they came actually back as the souls of the Bnei Israel that left Egypt. Go figure. So really, where, you have to look at ourselves and where do we come from? Okay? The dark side, okay? But it's all for the best because, Hashem smelters. It's smelting the souls.
The souls of the Israelites or the souls of the Rav?
Israelites.
Okay.
I saw it in another place that it was the Israelites. Shet. Okay, so after 130 years that Adam separated from his wife, he decided he got back together again and they had a child. They had Shet. Now from Shet comes everybody. But don't forget, all of the souls from Shet that is going to bring in a few minutes here are going to be soul level 3 of Adam, those who fell into the klipot, those who fell into the husks. Okay? So the descendants of husks are from Shet, and there are descendants in every generation spread out from Cain and Abel. Okay? So that's where we are here. Okay, I'm in the note here. Okay? Not all of the sparks that were included in Adam Rishon fell from him, as we learned previously. Some of these soul sparks remained with him, and he needed them for his own existence. The guy says, he's still alive. I'm still alive. That means I have a soul in me. However, others that remained with him were not needed for his own tikkun, and they were transmitted to his sons. So there was some extra soul stuff not needed for his own life that he was able to transmit to his sons, Cain and Abel. It is these that constitute the second level discussed here. since they were not needed by Adam Arishon himself, and they also did not fall with the other old souls, they are considered as somewhat new, an intermediate category between the new souls, first level, and the old souls, third. Okay? So also when they later came included with Cain and Abel during the lifetime of Adam, in other words, those elements of Adam's soul, it is also not to be considered a true incarnation. They did not come for themselves again, because they had not yet been divided into individual sparks in their own bodies. It's kind of weird, it's kind of hard to understand here.
Say not. It says yet.
Oh, because they had yet to be divided into individual sparks in their own bodies. So somehow they were so connected to Adam, it was like they were an extension of Adam's soul. Okay? They weren't their own soul. They didn't get their own soul status, individual soul status yet. Rather, they were only included in the bodies of Cain and Abel, which was not to be considered a true incarnation. It was like an extension of Adam Arishon were extended into the bodies of Cain and Abel. They were included in Cain and Abel, apparently, because the latter were still the roots of the entire human race that was to follow. However, they were not participants in the Gilgul, in the reincarnation. They were just being stored there awaiting distribution, kind of like a go-between, a way station, an extension of Adam. Hence, only when one of these sparks is afterwards apportioned to a body, it is considered a first incarnation in this world. So that's what's unique here. In other words, Cain dies, right? He had a soul, or an extension of Adam's soul. And then there's elements of Cain that are going to be reincarnated, spread out through all of history. Okay? Every single generation, there's going to be some of Cain, and there's going to be some of Abel. So what about those souls? What's the status of these souls? Okay? So when they come back, after they were in Cain and Abel, and they're spread out through all of history, is that considered a new, or is that considered an old? So he's telling us it's not totally new. It's going to be called a semi-new. And what's the difference? Okay, this is to some extent they're new, but not entirely, because they did already come in Adam, Cain, and Abel. If such a person, this is where it comes out. What's the practical difference? If such a person sins and causes a blemish and dies and reincarnates, then it will be called an old Gilgul. In other words, in that first, we'll call it the first reincarnation of Cain, somewhere spread out in history, and it comes born, then it's still called a new soul. But if it sins and has to be reincarnated again, you lose your total status of being part of Cain and Abel, and you go into a different category called old soul. And then you have to follow all the rules of the old souls. And what's all of the rule of the old souls? So if one of these almost new soul sins, like other old souls, when he completes his nefesh from Asiya, that's the lowest part of existence, he will have to die and reincarnate in order to get level 2. Okay? In other words, just like the old soul, if we say he has to come back, an old soul, and he has to work to get his level 1, his nefesh, and he's ready for his ruach. So classically, according to the formula, he has to die at whatever age and come back and get his ruach. Okay? He can't get his nefesh and his ruach in the same lifetime. Okay, that's the classic basic formula. In order to get your extra level soul, you have to die and come back and then earn that part of the soul. And even once you earn, let's say, level 2, a person would have to die and come back, and then he would earn level 3. Okay? You have to die each time in between to get the next level. Okay? That's the classic old soul modem, how it operates. Okay? Yes, during the first time in the world, it is called a somewhat new soul, as we have explained. It can achieve the nefesh of Asiya, that's the lowest level. It can achieve the ruach of Yetzirah, and the neshama of Bria, and even the nefesh of Atzilut. Don't forget, we have 4 worlds here. Okay, let's go to chart number 1. We had 4 worlds, the lowest, right? We had Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria, and Atzilut. Oh, the souls of Atzilut. Okay? How we long for the souls of Atzilut. So a person might level. So a person who comes back as the first time from, let's say, Cain or Abel, he can get all the way up to here level of soul, all the way up to here level of soul, all the way up to here level of soul, and just the bottom part of here, what we call nefesh of atzilut. Okay? Can't get all the way up to here. Okay? Some kind of blockage. Okay? Where am I? Okay. In this respect, they are like new souls. If they have not yet become blemished, then they can grow all the way till nefesh of atzilut. They get into the gated neighborhood, but only this part of the gated neighborhood. Okay? However, it cannot achieve more than this, like truly new souls. Truly new souls, which can attain the neshama of atzilut. And this is the difference between type 1 souls and those of type 2. In other words, type 1 soul who never were blemished. They left before the sin of Adam. It's that additional soul we mentioned before. It was this part of the world. They come as a new soul into this world. Very easily, you're going to see, they can climb this ladder and reach all the way up to here. Okay? Neshama of Atzilut. Okay, go once again, souls of Cain and Abel can only reach here. New souls can reach here. That's one difference. They could reach a much higher place in the first lifetime they're in. Okay? The reason for this difference is that when Adam Arishon sinned, he lost his Zehira Ila'ah, which is called the supernal splendor. As mentioned in the Zohar, in the Sitrei Torah Kedoshim, these are the levels of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechid of the world of Atzilut, which are called Zehira Ila'ah. Zehira, which means the shining or splendor, how do you call it? The supernal splendor. Level of soul from this realm is called this, as they call it, supernal splendor. When Adam sinned, he lost this whole section of himself. Okay? And they went and they were gone from him. Okay? The Zehira Ila'ah is the soul of Adam from the level of Atzilut. That's the highest place. When he sinned, the Zehira Ila'ah disappeared. It ascended above, and the only level that was left to him was the Nefesh of Atzilut, was this little section down here. Okay? They did not fall into the Klipot, which are only in the three worlds of a Bia. Bia are called these three worlds: Bria, Yetzira, and Atzilut. That's the abbreviation for these. In other words, when Adam Rishon sinned, his soul, which was really all kind of this, right? Or kind of this plus this, okay? So all of his soul burst and went into these three realms here, okay? Which is basically where all the old souls are found. But they were, okay, so they did not fall into the Klipot, which are only in the three worlds of Bia, but they were taken up into their places from all the levels of Atzilut called Zehira Ilah, right? The cosmic splendor. Only the Nefesh of Atzilut remained. Okay, this description is exactly the same as description as one of the details in the shattering of the vessels, which we discussed last week. The shattering of the vessels we discussed was the 7 worlds that God made and destroyed before this creation. It was made where each vessel received too much light and broke.
Any of those souls from past destruction, did they ever come back into
the souls from the past destruction, we can say, are that's a good question. Gosh, the Sefer Yetzirah brings down, that, we look at the day of a life in creation as, as 1,000 years, right? Just like God made the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th, right? So basically, we are in 5,779, I believe, right?
Correct.
So we're in like the 6th millennium, right? So we're 6,000 years, and then we have 1,000 years of Shabbat, right? Now there has to be 7 sets of those we have handed down. Would you believe it, right? In other words, there's 7 sets of 7,000 years in our space-time dimension. It's really beyond our dimension. So there were souls in those earlier worlds that were created. And they say some of those souls do come and carry into these, right? Yeah. So Some people say that's the fish. The fish. Some people are very makpid on Shabbat to make sure that they have fish on all 3 meals. Right? I don't know why I hate fish. What?
I've had dreams.
Say, yeah, there's a lot of people have the episodes where the fish is talking to them, right? It's not in a dream. It was like they become rumors. I don't know. Now everybody's got camera these days. Okay, the fish really talked to you and said that the Messiah is coming. Did you get a video of that? You had a smartphone on you, didn't you? Okay. Well, there have been stories like that where the fish speak. Okay, let's not go there. Like, yeah, okay. I need to interview those people directly. Okay. In any case, they do say that there are souls that come from those primordial worlds. Okay, but I would like to say, even according to what we discussed here, our souls come from those primordial worlds, because don't forget they were in Adam, and then they shattered. Okay, all over the world. So it's us to go ahead and retrieve those body parts of Adam. That's what we're doing. That's what we're involved in. You got elevated. You got to keep elevating yourself, and you got to keep elevating all of those sparks. We're here to elevate sparks. Yeah.
Just a comment. As you're talking about the fish, in a more cosmic sense, there's a saying in medicine that where I don't know if you say all the words, but biology. There's the evolution through fish and so on to finally get to mankind. So it could be in a philosophical way. You recapitulate phylogeny. So you are going through all these cycles. So the fish were an important part of this evolution to eventually we had man.
Interesting.
So, maybe that fits in with this Zohar.
Fish are very unique because
that would
they
be a step along the way.
Fish are very unique because they don't need slaughtering, ritual slaughtering. And and blood of fish is permissible to eat as opposed to an animal, right? So it's like alien, okay? The way I look at it, they're aliens swimming in the water, okay? They don't talk to me though, okay? Which I'm very happy that they don't. Okay.
Talk to you, I'm going to be worried about you.
Yes, thank you. So anyways, here the shattering of the vessels was very much in the same format as what we're seeing here by Adam in the sin. Okay? So in that place also, when the vessels broke, the higher lights ascended back to where they had come from. At the same time, the sparks, equivalent to the lower lights, descended together with the broken vessels into the realm of the klipot, into the husks. So in other words, the way it was set up, that they are the shattering of the vessels, you could picture, they were kind of like 7 lights in a row. Picture like 7 circles, right? That's the way it was. That's the way that they picture it, right? We don't like imageries, but we use it because it helps us, okay? Just to get some kind of grasp. Because when I use the 10 sefirot like this is called, we call this the 3-column array. This was after the rectification. This is in the world of rectification. But before that, really, they were like in a row. We look at it like this. Really, the first 3 were still in a 3-column array, but the last ones were like in a row, like this, straight line. And the light, which comes from the infinite light, came down through here and went into vessel number 1. Now, vessel number 1 thought, okay, it's not vessel number 1 received the light portion of it and all the ones below it. Okay? So in other words, like you're picking up the laundry from the laundromat and you're in line, and all of a sudden they load not only your laundry, but they're loading everybody else's laundry behind you, because that's the way it's working. So this vessel just was going to go ahead and absorb all of this light, and it was too much light for it. Mm-hmm. And therefore it burst. Okay, and shattered. So when it shattered, some of the lights went up, the higher levels of the lights went back up to its source, and the lower level lights, together with the laundry, right, went into the laundry that fell out all over the place, West Belfort, okay, flying all over West Belfort, okay, in the sparks. And then the light went down again into this one, overload, broke, shattered, boom. Light went down, then down, then down, next to this one. It just couldn't receive even its own light because it was just everybody else is shattering, and it shattered also. Okay? All of these little vessels shattered. What are these vessels represent? Okay? God, everything is about us having a relationship with God. Okay?
Is that got anything to do with the light orbs?
I don't know what an orb is.
Ancient aliens on the History Channel.
No, I don't know anything about that.
Ancient aliens.
I look at it as conceptual. You want to grasp something. You want to grasp something. We could look at it only as conceptual. It's metaphorical. It's symbolic. Sometimes things are just hard to grasp, right? And if you get too much of it, it breaks you. Let's say, look at it very simply as a person who wins the lottery. It's a great example. It's too much light at too much time. And if the person is not unable and have the mindset and the smarts of how to deal with it, what happens to most people who win lotteries?
Lose it all.
They lose it all and end up worse. Relationships break. Their friends are no longer their friends. Oh, just a mess of stuff. It's called simply a shattering of the vessels. Okay? If a sudden tragedy could occur to a person where they actually go crazy, that's called a shattering of the vessels. The mind can't take it, that amount of stress, of pressure. Okay? So cataclysmic events such as that, it's real, right? You get the example, right? Too much money, too much time, you don't know how to deal with it. You don't have the wisdom, it's going to break you. So that, so that's basically what happened here. Some elements of light went up, and then some sparks flew down, right? And shattered among the klipot. Okay, and that's where we are. Okay, now. Okay? Let's go on here a little bit more. Okay? So the Rav explains further that whenever there is a sin, then the higher lights ascend and depart in order to be taken up in order to not to be taken up in the sin and sullied. In other words, there are parts of our souls, if a person is going to sin, there are elements of our souls which will leave us because they do not want to get blemished by that sin. Safety latch, it's a safety mechanism, okay? Thank God he built such a mechanism, okay? Thus, when these sparks that were included in Cain and Abel come into the world now for the first time, they can only attain through their deeds until the level of the nefesh of Atzilut and no more. They only get so far. This is according to what they had at the beginning. Because they were part of Adam, and the only thing that was left with Adam is the only thing that they're going to be able to acquire. Okay? They can only get to that point. Okay? However, completely new souls can grow from the nefesh of Asiya all the way up to the heights of Atzilut called the Zehira Ila'ah, and this is an advantage of the first level over the second level. So we will experience there are certain souls in this world that can raise themselves up to such a high level of knowledge and make unbelievable rectifications and tikkuns, okay, to reach this high level. We don't see them much anymore these days. I feel that we are in an orphaned generation. It's meant to be. It's meant to be. We don't have real Gedolim in Torah anymore. We might have hidden righteous, the 36 hidden righteous, okay, in each generation. That might be on that level. They might be the new souls, but they have to remain hidden.
But we don't have what? You said we don't have...
We don't have real big men in Torah anymore, okay? Since the Chazon Ish, right? I believe I asked one person, the Chazon Ish, he lived in the 50s. He was the chief rabbi in Israel, right? Since him, Moshe Feinstein was probably the last great leader of the generation, but he will say, I don't hold candle to the Chazon Ish, this rabbi who lived in the 50s. So he was on an unbelievable level, right? And we really don't have that kind of anymore. Europe, the Holocaust broke most of the chain. Like I say, but it was meant to be because we don't have that influence anymore.
Who would decide if there was someone else like that alive?
Not us.
Well, I don't
You
mean
know,
us,
I'm telling you,
How did they decide before?
it was almost obvious. Because the guy, here's the Chazon Ish, somebody comes to him, we got a problem, this guy, he needs brain surgery, it's a dangerous surgery, should he do it or should he not do the brain surgery? You're going to a rabbi who's never went to doctor school.
No.
But he says, okay, this is how you do it. And he drew a little thing on a piece of paper. He's got to come in from this part of the head. He has to go here and here and here and here. And this is how he has to do it. And he goes like that.
Amazing.
And they did it, and the guys lived. Okay? Because everything is in the Torah. The Torah is the map of creation. Okay? Everything is in there. And this guy is able to go ahead and siphon out of there every single thing that is needed. It was another great story. Okay? Some people don't like these stories, but it's a great story. It's unbelievable. And only he could do it. There was a person who had a very serious illness. I think it was, it was an internal thing that was going on in one of his organs. And he was debating whether to stay here or to go to outside of Israel to do the procedure. There were the top experts, and here is not so top experts. Should I leave to go there, or should I do it here? Now, who would know such a thing? How would you know? So he went and says, you stay here and do it, you're fine. Right? And the guy did the procedure, and it was fine. And they went to him, and how'd you know? How'd you know? So he goes, this is unbelievable. And nobody, people would like to be able to do what he did, but he didn't. He says, your injury was in a certain organ. So he looks up, and in the Torah, there's a list of different internal wounds in an animal. Okay, that if the animal had this internal injury, it's rendered not kosher. After we slaughter an animal, they look for internal injuries to see if there's internal injuries in a certain status, certain kinds of internal injuries render the animal not fit. Your particular injury, he said to this person, is a debate amongst the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, who lived in Krakow hundreds of years ago, and Rabbi Yosef Cairo, who was the codifier of Jewish law, who lived in Sfat in Israel. It's a debate, yours particular, in animals. It's a debate. He holds it's not kosher, it's treif, and the rabbi here in Israel holds it's kosher still. If you were to go outside of Israel, you were to be under the auspices of the influence of that deciding codifier of Jewish law in the map, in the cosmic map of the Torah, and you would be considered to be treif. Therefore dangerous. Therefore it's considered to be a wound that could kill you. But if you stay here, it's not. Because you're under the auspices of his spiritual influence of that rabbi who lived 100 years ago who decided about an animal, but still the influence is still there, and he was go ahead and calculated you're under this influence of this rabbi. So therefore you stay here, you'll be fine. So he stayed and he was fine. Whoa, what a move. You don't get guys doing moves like that anymore. You just don't. Bruce Lee, there's nobody like Bruce Lee. I'm sorry. There's no Bruce Lees, okay? You just don't have it. So we're an orphan generation, but it's meant to be. Okay? Because this is how God wants to run the show till he brings the redemption. Okay? So we really haven't had a new soul, a solid new soul, right? Right? Since probably the Baal Shem Tov, maybe the Bavitcher Rebbe, could be. Okay? They do say about the Baal Shem Tov, definitely a new soul here, because this guy saw from one end of the world to the other. This guy, he was laughing at his Shabbos table. He kept laughing, and they go, "What are you laughing about?" He says, "I'll show you Motzi Shabbos." They took a trip to some remote place, and he says, "Tell me what happened to you on Shabbos in front of his Talmidim." He says, "I really don't want to, but I'll tell you. But the only thing we had to eat was beans, right?" No, it was a different story. He says, we didn't have anything for Shabbos, nothing for Shabbos. I went to shul. I says, I'll just daven and pray, and I'll wait till everybody leaves so they're not embarrassed that I don't have any, so I'm not, so that I'm coming to a dark house and people see me coming to a dark house. Not even candles. We don't even have candles. And so what happened was, I hate to leave you over for a little bit. No problem. Humor me with this story. He goes to shul, he hangs out, he waits for everybody to leave, and then he's walking home, of course, broken and depressed that have had nothing for Shabbos, and he didn't want to borrow money, and he told his wife, "Don't you borrow any more money." Okay? So all of a sudden he goes and he sees lights are lit in his house, and he says, "This is not a good sign. I told my wife not to borrow any money." He goes over, opens the door, and the table's set, and there's food, and it's warm smells and everything like that, and he's upset, and he goes, "What happened? You borrowed money. I told you not to borrow money." He says, No, I didn't. I figured we don't have anything. I might as well just clean out the closet. So she's cleaning out, and she cleaned out. She got her old wedding dress buried in the closet, and she reached in the pocket, and she had 2 pearl earrings. She says, okay, I'm selling this. She went and sold it, got money for Shabbos, and so they danced. And the Baal Shem Tov said, as he's telling him, says, that was the first time I laughed. And then they ate the soup, and they washed for bread, and then they danced again. He says, that was the second time. And then, they had the meat and had the meal, and then they danced again. He says, that was the third time I danced. So he saw things going on beyond. You're talking about somebody with you see beyond all physicality, looking at souls and checking out souls from miles and miles away. He's able to laugh at great distances. We don't have people like that anymore. Okay, but it's meant to be. Okay, he's he's everywhere at all times. But that's a special thing. You also can be Eliyahu. Okay, not just your name. Okay, there's what's called the Eliyahu moment. Eliyahu is a very interesting. We'll call it a force, angelic force in the world. It doesn't have to come down necessarily as a person that throws mud in your face. Okay, or whatever. He comes anytime. But just we'll end off with this. Anytime anybody brings you good tidings, good news, and then he tells you the good news. That's Elijah the prophet telling you the good news. He's Elijah comes in him like an Ebor. We discussed Ebor as that extra soul, and he's transmitting the good news because he is the transmitter of good news. So anytime you hear good news, you're going, I'm having a revelation of Elijah the prophet. And that's when Rabbi Nachman, just to add the last thing, if it ever comes to you, that he says that's the best time to say Tehillim, Psalms. Read a psalm. Pick up a psalm book, find a psalm, say a psalm. Say a kapitel Tehillim, because then you become King David. In other words, Elijah always comes to herald the coming of the Messiah, of the redemption. Good news, redemption's coming. So in like a pocket little micro frame, right? In a micro little cubicle experience, you created a redemption. So when you hear good news, you say a song, sing a song, right? So because then you become like Mashiach, because King David wrote psalms, right? He put together psalms. So it's like a little mini redemption in a capsule form, but it has tremendous reverberations in all of the worlds. Okay, because we always talk about Mayim Nukvin, the feminine waters send energy to the cosmic realms which bleed back down to here. So we're always involved in a creative chain of events. Okay, we'll stop here.
I was going to add, you mentioned the lottery. The other one was Untitled